And tonight on the Daily Wrap, a report now says the Department of Justice says Hillary Clinton broke no law when she used her private email account. So, is the scandal over? Some of the Democratic Party are now calling for John Kerry to join the race. Will he? And Donald Trump has two new enemies, Ben Carson, Carly Fiorina. We'll tell you what the hell happened. Tonight, this is the Daily Wrap, live from New York City. And welcome to the show. I'm Joe Contra, joined by my co-host Rick Unger. We've been talking Hillary for weeks, months it feels like, and now she's in the clear. Time to start measuring the drapes, Unger.
I don't know if she is. You know, it's fascinating what the Justice Department said. I'm really pleased that Alan Dershowitz is joining us today. I have so many legal questions as to what this ultimately means. I can't wait to ask him these questions.
F. Lee Unger and Dershowitz coming up soon. To F. Lee's right, she's an anchor for the Blaze TV and the next host of the MTV Music Awards. She is Amy Holmes.
I like wearing clothes.
Sometimes. And finally, he's a speaker, author, patriot, and former Navy SEAL, Carl Higbee, and his 2% body fat. He's back. Okay, everybody, let's get right to the Daily Download.
I turned over everything I was obligated to turn over, and then I moved on. People delete their personal emails, their work-related emails, whatever emails they have, on a regular basis. I turned over everything that I could imagine. Now, all I can tell you is that the law, the regulation, did not in any way stand in my way of being permitted to do what I did.
Well, it looks like the Department of Justice agrees with Mrs. Clinton. According to the Washington Times, lawyers with the DOJ told a federal court that the former Secretary of State broke no laws using her own private email account and how she handled state emails. Furthermore, the DOJ says Clinton no longer is obligated to hand over any more emails to investigators. But according to Judicial Watch, the State Department is breaking its own rules on how Clinton's emails were handled. According to State Department procedure, quote, personal records of a department presidential appointee may not be removed from the government until the State Department records officer, in cooperation with the SES or appropriate administrative office, approves of the removal, a process which generally requires a hands-on examination of the materials. Is Clinton now completely off the hook? To get the answer to that question, let's bring in Newsmax TV contributor, famed attorney and Harvard law professor, Alan Dershowitz. By the way, be sure to get Alan's amazing new book. It really is great. I'm about 75% through it, but it's already made the case for me. The case against the deal with Iran, how we could stop Iran from getting nukes. Professor, welcome back. So is Mrs. Clinton free and clear at this point, at least from a legal perspective?
Well, I hate to say I told you so, but I've been all over the media saying that we have to distinguish between judgment on the one hand, politics, and legality. And legally, she was always in the clear. The law requires that you have to know that what you're doing is illegal. There has to have been classification notifications. And she was right when she said that there was nothing illegal about what she did at the time she did it, and nothing that she had on her email was marked classified. That doesn't mean it was good judgment. She's now acknowledged that she wished she hadn't done it. But I think the case is over as a legal case for all intent and purposes. Some of the media was saying that she was a target of the Justice Department, and they were saying over and over again, no, she is not a target. But a lot of the media wouldn't listen to that, and they were repeating the term target. And that's just not right. She was never the target of the investigation. What she did was entirely legal. Now the public has the right to judge her on whether what she did was right or wrong, as a matter of judgment, whether she's done enough to apologize. That's a fair point politically.
Hey, Alan, Rick Unger, here's my question for you. If somebody avoids government email completely, as we think for the most part Hillary Clinton did by using her private email account, those emails, government-related emails that are on her private server, were supposed to have been on the government server. Doesn't it strike you as odd that the law would require that the emails on the government server had to be looked at before erased, and yet when she supplants that server with an incorrect one, the personal server, suddenly they don't have to be looked at?
Well, I think the law should clearly change, and I think the law should now require, and that's, I think, why the FBI is looking into this, because this did pose a problem. I think the law should now be very clear for the future that government officials in sensitive positions Secretary of State must use that are preserved and go through the normal process and go through the process also of being checked for classified material.
So basically,
object lesson.
She'll be off the hook on a technicality because that law did not exist at the time
Well, you
it took
say
place.
technicality. She's off the hook
Right.
from the law. The law is not a technicality any more than the Constitution is a technicality. You can't be criminally prosecuted for doing something that was not unlawful at the time. But we can learn from experience and change the law, and I think we ought to do that.
Okay, understood.
Professor Dershowitz, Amy Holmes here. This actually sort of reminds me of Al Gore dialing for dollars from the vice president's office and saying there was no controlling legal authority. My question to you is, I'm confused. Why is the FBI counterintelligence investigating these emails, hiring 50 staffers to go through these emails? Plus, we have a server that's been erased that the forensic experts are still trying to reconstruct. How can they already have made the determination that she didn't break the law when the investigation is ongoing?
No, it's clear that she didn't break the law because nobody has alleged, and there's not been any evidence that has been found or suggested that there was anything marked classified that she knew was classified.
But we don't know because we haven't recovered all of those emails that she erased when she wiped the server.
Well, and if they do find anything that was marked classified, she has to have known it was marked classified. But you don't investigate people based on surmise. You investigate people based on facts, and the facts at this point in time provide no basis for an investigation. I think the investigation is designed to make sure that this doesn't happen in the future and to make sure that no material that should have been classified, but that wasn't, has been in any way compromised. That's a fair point to investigate, and it's also a fair point to say,
Alan, we can't let you go without asking you what you have to say about today's vote in the Senate, making it clear that there will be no resolution of condemnation of the Iran nuclear deal, and that there'll be no veto necessary because there'll be nothing to veto.
Well, I think it's an outrage. I think it's an outrage to democracy that this most important foreign policy initiative of the 20th century gets treated the way Southern bigots treated civil rights legislation, by preventing any vote or any discussion. There's nothing more undemocratic than the filibuster. And for the Democrats, the liberals, to use the filibuster to stop any discussion is the second most outrageous thing that happened today. The most outrageous thing that happened today is the New York Times bigoted chart where they list the votes against the deal by the religious background of the voters. My God, you might expect that from some kind of a bigoted newspaper. But for the newspaper of record, the New York Times, to be putting stars of David essentially next to the voting patterns of people in Congress, and essentially making the accusation through the chart that people of Jewish background who voted against the deal must have done it because they have an allegiance, a dual allegiance to Israel, without mentioning that the vast majority of Americans are opposed to this deal. In fact, a higher percentage of Jews favor the deal than non-Jews, according to polls. According to the recent Pew poll, only 21% of Americans support this deal. How dare the New York Times identify by religious affiliation voters against the deal? They would never do that on racial grounds. They would never do it on gender grounds. They would never identify Muslims who voted for or against the bill. This is the most bigoted thing I have ever seen the New York Times do, and it's an outrage, and there will be hell to pay for this. There will be a lot of criticism about what the New York Times did today.
Yeah, Professor Dershowitz was certainly a black eye for the Gray Lady, no question about that. And I have a feeling that the public editor will be writing about this for that paper probably tomorrow, if not over the weekend, because you're not the only one, including myself, that has expressed outrage over this. So we appreciate you bringing that up, and we appreciate you joining the show tonight. Thanks so much.
My pleasure. Thank you.
Okay. So, guys, final word.
You know, I disagree with Alan Dershowitz on the deal itself, but he couldn't be more correct about what he had to say about what the New York Times did. I was absolutely shocked that that happened.
That's the only way to put it. Yeah. Shocked, indeed. So, do you think Hillary Clinton is now officially off the hook? I have a feeling these comments will be colorful. Go to newsmaxtv.com/comments and let us know. We might even read a couple on the air later. Coming up next, are Bernie Sanders and Hillary Clinton tied for the nomination now for the Democratic Party? My goodness, stay tuned.
And welcome back to the Daily Wrap. Although former Secretary of State Hillary Clinton did receive some good news today on the legal front, things were not quite so rosy on the political side. According to the latest Quinnipiac University Iowa poll out today, Bernie Sanders has now passed Clinton, although still within the margin of error in the Hawkeye state. As you can see, Clinton continues to be her own worst enemy, managing to lose 12 points in just 1 month. In further bad news for Clinton, both Sanders and Biden have a higher net favorability rating and higher rating for honesty and empathy. Amy, let me ask you this. Can Hillary Clinton recover her footing with 14 months to go?
Well, it is 14 months, so she has that time. Never say never. But also, remember, Hillary Clinton has been a public figure in the public eye for going on 4 decades now, from the governor's mansion in Arkansas to the White House, as senator, secretary of state. I think public perception of Hillary is pretty cooked in. People know, they know her, they know what they think about her, and unfortunately, the more they see of her, the less they like.
Well, Carl, I know that you are not necessarily a supporter of Hillary Clinton, but looking at it from your point of view and recognizing that while she's seeing some diminished numbers among Democrats, she's still the overwhelming Democrat favorite. What do you think?
But back to what Amy said, she's been in the public eye for so long that I think that at this point, the fact that she's dropped this much is a telling tale, because people have known her for 40 years, and in these last few months, since she started making more media and more public appearances, she has dropped that much. I think she's going to tank. And you know what? I got to give it to Bernie Sanders. I don't really like the guy's policy. I don't really like the guy personally. But he's like, look, Democrats are pretty much socialists, so guess what? I'm a socialist and I'm running for president. And people are supporting
Democrats are not socialists.
Ask Debbie Wasserman Schultz.
Well, ask me. I'm a Democrat.
He's willing to embrace the label. He's willing to be candid, unlike Hillary, about exactly where he stands.
Hillary's just not sincere. I mean, she just doesn't sound like she was in it.
Joe, that's not going away in 14 months, is it? I mean, this is where I take the point of our fellow panelist here. Hillary, look, the story can change over 14 months. Maybe the email thing does go away. I think we'd all question if that's going to happen, but maybe it does. But you know what doesn't go away? Hillary is Hillary.
Right.
How can she recover?
A bad candidate. I've been saying that since the very beginning when her poll numbers were 20, 30 points higher than this. 2008, we saw this movie in Iowa, Rick, where she finished not first, not second, John Edwards. She finished third. You can't put toothpaste back in the tube. To Amy's point, she's been in the public eye for decades, and the brand is established. Taste is taste. You either like the ice cream or you don't like the ice cream. And right now, voters don't like this flavor of ice cream.
Well, you know, it's hard to argue with that, and it doesn't help any when her campaign announces that they're going to reboot the campaign. You're not supposed to tell us you're rebooting it. You reboot it.
She's going to show more humor.
You can, She's going to suddenly have better writers, I guess. Meanwhile, the Democratic National Committee has announced there will only be 6 primary debates. Now, bear in mind, in 2008, there were close to 24 debates. Some, including 2 DNC vice chairs, feel limiting the debates to just 6 will freeze out lesser-known candidates like former Governor Martin O'Malley. To that end, O'Malley joined MSNBC's Morning Joe and called out DNC Chair Debbie Wasserman Schultz.
Do you believe the process has been rigged?
I do.
By the party leaders for Hillary Clinton?
I think you're sore pressed to say leaders, but I'm told that this is the prerogative of the chair. And there's always an inclination, I think, for old relationships to kind of circle the wagons and protect one another. But that's not what our party's about. This is
tell our viewers who the chair is.
The chair is Debbie Wasserman Schultz.
Right.
Yeah.
So the fact that the 2 vice chairs have come out, I think, speaks volumes to it. And look, this race is wide open.
So Debbie Wasserman Schultz, despite growing displeasure over this with Democrats, said today that she's not going to budge on this issue. Carl, you ran for Congress.
I did.
Do you believe that the DNC is trying to protect Hillary Clinton and basically the fix is in?
I think Wasserman Schultz is trying to protect her. But one thing we have to look at here is what O'Malley's doing. He's taking Trump's strategy. Trump is very hard on the Republican party, the establishment. And he's trying to take that same thing and attack the Democratic Party. Now, typically, the Democratic Party is very intact, and they're very, publicly, they're very together. This is one of the first times that you've had a presidential candidate really come out and call out and fight against the party it's running for.
Interesting. Well, in the meantime, Hillary continues to open the door for other Democratic candidates. The New York Times reports today that, New York Times was busy today, that party insiders are throwing around some other names in addition to Vice President Joe Biden. Let's go around the table, and I want to get your immediate thoughts on the following names, each one of you. Start with you, Joe, Secretary of State John Kerry.
2004, if he wins Ohio, he wins the presidency.
Yes, he does.
So he came pretty damn close. No reason why you can't think John Kerry is just coming off this Iran deal, getting that done, has stature, has name recognition. I don't think he could win.
But only 21% approval.
Oh, yes, exactly. So it's something that he doesn't want to own necessarily, a non-starter.
I was going to say, John Kerry, Iran deal, 21% public approval. He's so closely associated with having negotiated this. I actually think that it would hurt his candidacy.
Carl?
Dead on arrival.
Dead on arrival. Okay, let's go to Vice President Al Gore.
Well, he invented the internet.
He did.
And he said the seas were going to rise 50 feet. That didn't happen. But, as long as he allows another recount in Florida,
Amy, quick one.
Oh, Mike, an Al Gore-Bush matchup all over again. Please save us from that.
I have, a few words for Al Gore. Massage therapist.
Yeah.
Joe?
You don't have to, yeah, right. You don't have to worry about Bush in any capacity.
And then quickly, just a quick response to Senator, what's her name? Elizabeth Warren. I forgot her name. Joe.
Elizabeth Warren. I believe she will be on the Joe Biden ticket, not at the top of a ticket.
Elizabeth Warren, she's too left for America. But let me throw out my own suggestion.
But look how well Bernie Sanders is doing.
Let me throw out my own suggestion. Leon Panetta. His name isn't being tossed around, but I think he could be a very interesting candidate for them.
Quickly.
Not a snowball's chance in hell.
What about Panetta? What about...
Oh, yeah, you know what? Idea? Not a bad option.
It's actually not a bad option. Interesting thinking. All right, we want you to share your thoughts about Bernie Sanders passing up Hillary in Iowa. You can do that by going to newsmaxtv.com/comments. We also want to know who your pick for the 2016 nomination is in either party. Go to newsmaxpolls.com and let us know. Coming up, Trump. Stay with us.
Donald Trump has an issue, this time with Ben Carson, because the good doctor questioned Trump's faith in Jesus.
Chris, who is he to question my faith when I am, he doesn't even know me. I've met him a few times, but I don't know Ben Carson. He was a doctor. Perhaps an okay doctor, by the way. You can check that out too. We're not talking about a great. He was an okay doctor.
I don't know about okay doctor. He was the first man to separate conjoined twins.
Because he's a doctor and he hired one nurse, he's going to end up being the president of the United States.
I don't know what was more entertaining, the soundbite or Chris Cuomo's reactions. Okay, duly noted. So is Trump finished with his constructive criticism? Oh, not even close.
For him to criticize me on my faith is absolutely, and for him to read from the Bible in his memory, it looked like he memorized it about 2 minutes before he went on stage.
Do you think you're more a man of faith than he is?
Ben Carson is not going to be your next president, that I can tell you.
This is your 2015 election. Okay, now it's interesting to note that Trump is actually leading with Republican-leaning evangelical voters, beating not only Carson, but the scripture-touting governor and Rick Unger BFF, Mike Huckabee. Okay, Carl, from what I can tell, Trump is not really a practicing Christian, more of maybe like a Christmas, Easter kind of guy, just shows up during the big holidays.
Yeah, and I like Ben Carson, full disclosure, but I think Ben Carson is kind of like the Insta-Jesus right now, since he's become into this campaign. He was pro-abortion, he was pro-choice, and as a doctor and everything like that, and separating conjoined twins, I do that before breakfast every morning. So
yeah,
that's not a big deal. Yeah, John Hopkins got nothing on me.
Twin what?
Cheerios.
Yeah.
You separate twin Cheerios.
Yeah, I was going to say.
No, but I think that
he meant on Craigslist,
I think the Donald has a great point. Who is he to question his faith? You know what? Donald Trump had a very powerful line when he talked about his pro-life stance. He said very clearly, he said, you know what, I was pro-choice, and now I'm pro-life because I know somebody who grew up to be a rock star that was considering being aborted. And that is a flawless answer, and I think that's something that is very powerful with a lot of the voters, regardless of religious step back.
Amy, I think the theme here is that if you go after Trump in any way, shape, or form, even if it's minuscule, you will come back with the heat of 10,000 suns.
Right, and I think he actually wrote a book about that, that if someone attacks you, you've got to attack right back. But Donald Trump
Sun Tzu wrote a book about that.
Right, but his problem is that, okay, I'm with you, I'm not with you. And he goes way too far in it. I actually agree with Donald Trump that I think that it's inappropriate to question another person's faith and what's in their heart, but to accuse Ben Carson of being an okay doctor, give me a break.
Yeah, he was running basically. He was a top doctor in his field at age 27 at Johns Hopkins, which I heard is a pretty good facility.
Yeah.
So it's funny that had to come. He had a good point, but that kind of threw everything
That's
off.
exactly right. And by the way, I am not going to sit here and judge either of these men on their faith. Their faith is what their faith is. It's none of my business. And if they want to have this argument over that, it just shows you how sad this presidential campaign is.
Yep.
You know, I don't pick my presidents based on the depth of their faith. I take them at their word.
But the left-leaning,
let's not talk about it.
The left-leaning media is happy to illustrate this because
they
think it's an egg in our face.
But Carl, if you can credit Donald Trump for his conversion on the abortion issue, you should also credit Ben Carson.
Absolutely, but I think Ben Carson is not talking about his past experience in religion and things like that. So
Okay. Well, it's not over with the Donald. He also took aim at former head of HP and rising in the polls, Carly Fiorina.
First it was Rosie, then it was Megyn. Now you got Carly Fiorina. They got you in Rolling Stone magazine making fun of the way she looks. Why do you talk about how women look so much? You know it's not presidential. It's probably not even kind.
I'm talking about persona. Look, here's another one.
You said look at that face.
Between Carson and Carly.
You said look at that face.
I'll say some nice things about you at least, so that they'll say at least he says nice things about some people.
I'll take it.
The fact is that Carly Fiorina has had a terrible past.
A terrible past.
You know,
is she talking about the HP boardroom brawl that led to her firing?
Yeah, it probably is, but I couldn't care less. This is where I'm so lost about Donald Trump. You don't say things like that about anybody else. You've seen her face? Do you want that face to be president? Shame on him.
Is that the basic answer?
There's no excuse. I couldn't care less why he says things like that. The amazing thing to me, and I worry so much about what it says about us, is that he's going to go up 3 more points in the poll for being so insulted.
Never affect him. The Megyn Kelly thing didn't. I'll bet this won't either.
Right.
And I don't know why.
I don't
really
know why
don't
either. But you know, I'm starting to wonder if Donald Trump isn't the product of some tragic hazing incident at his military prep school that he has to come out with all these bullying remarks.
Interesting, Carl. 5 seconds.
I'm going to defend Donald to the gates of hell. So
it probably will.
Really?
That's why we have you on.
Yeah. Talking that way about her?
Yeah.
Okay. Well, what do you think about Donald Trump and his comment against Carly Fiorina? Carl's all for it. Go to newsmaxtv.com/comments and let us know. And be sure to get your copy of Ben Carson's book, One Nation. It's absolutely free. All you have to do is cover the shipping cost, which is $4.95. Call 1-800-655-7567. That's 1-800-655-7567. Or visit newsmax.com/Ben. Okay, coming up next, we have the latest on the Iran deal. It never, ever ends, but we're going to talk about it anyway. Interesting stuff. Stay tuned.
You have to do something to secure the border. We don't have a country without a border. Without a border, we just don't have a country.
That, of course, GOP frontrunner Donald Trump discussing the importance of border security on Morning Joe back in July. Now, this is an issue that remains a hot-button issue in the 2016 campaign. But now, the president of the National Border Patrol Council, Brandon Judd, testified yesterday before Congress and told us that just 40% of the United States-Mexico border is under operational control, and that's on a good day. During his testimony, Mr. Judd also said that 1 in every 5 illegal immigrants caught at the border are criminals, adding that while some believe that lower apprehension rates indicated a more secure border, this is simply not the case. According to Mr. Judd, this is the challenge we are facing at the border today. There are those who will point to lower apprehension rates and tell you the border is secure. Border Patrol agents, however, throughout this nation will tell you that the border is not secure and the southwest border certainly is not safe. So Border Patrol is saying that the border is not up to snuff. Question is, how do we make it better, Amy? More patrol officers, a bigger, stronger Trump wall with a beautiful door in the middle? I mean, what do we do?
Well, I think we certainly do need to give more support to our Border Patrol, increase the numbers, and actually President Obama agrees with that and claims that he's done just that. But we also need to address the magnet. What is drawing all of these illegal immigrants to cross the border illegally? And that has to do with policy, and it has to do with President Obama basically granting amnesty and waving a big green go sign for all of these folks. And by the way, it is not humanitarian when you see the stories about all the people losing their lives from human smugglers trying to go across the desert and bodies, burial grounds being found. I mean, it's really a tragedy for many of these people.
Joe, here's what I often wonder about. I wonder if we're still having a debate about something that's seen a significant change already. We know now that 40% of the illegals in this country are people who came in on visas. When the visas expired, they just stayed because the government doesn't seem to know how to find them.
Like
anymore.
Jorge Ramos on a state visa.
Yeah. So we know that that's the case. We also are told, if we can believe the statistics, that we have a net zero in terms of Mexicans coming in. And I'm only speaking about Mexicans. There are certainly other people south of the border that come. A net zero, Mexicans coming in and Mexicans going out. Are we over-focused on this southern wall where maybe we should be putting some more of our focus on other things?
Other things like the northern?
Well, I'm not even going to go to the northern thing that Scott Walker suggested, but maybe more on how to track people that have come in legally.
Like the Chris Christie idea with FedEx and tracking people.
Yeah,
which was made to be inhumane, but I got what he was trying to say.
E-verify.
Look, there are plenty of things that we could do here. National Guard, for instance. Well, we have hundreds of thousands in reserve. You could make them Border Patrol agents, in essence, obviously in
as
shifts.
The law currently stands, you couldn't, because of posse comitatus. You could change that law and make that possible.
Right. I don't think anybody would have a problem with that. We have drones that we're using in terror. We could use that all the time as well. And then you find out where the most common crossings are, because building a 1,900-mile wall, that's going to take a very long time and a lot of money, and maybe it can't be done. The most common crossings, and then strengthen those areas in terms of walls and borders and so on. And then you're going to cut it down by half at least, and that's an improvement.
You have to come down and look at the cartel too. The cartel owned territory into America. And one of the big issues too, which draws people to America, is our economy. People are coming here looking for jobs. They're getting jobs, and they're getting cash jobs. If you go to a Western Union on a Friday afternoon after payroll, there is a line out the door of people who are generally not of American descent, or what would appear to be American descent. So the issue is here, we are putting money and they are exporting it back to their home countries. If we could stop that flow of money somehow, if we could tax the money leaving America from Western unions, from things like that, we could actually make a big impact on this, as well as, you're talking about the National Guard, and you can't do that, but here's what you could do: volunteer militia. You put people on the border as a volunteer. I would volunteer to go down there for a week and man a post. And you would get thousands of people.
I appreciate the courage to do that. I'm not sure deputizing citizens to be in confrontations, as you mentioned, even with drug cartels, is a good idea. But when you see a sign, as what was put up in Arizona, that it was a warning on Arizona land, a warning to American citizens: do not step foot here because it's too dangerous, and it's been given over to a Mexican drug cartel. I mean, that's outrageous. The federal government should be defending American citizens and American
land. Like a drug caliphate.
20 million veterans out there. I guarantee you 15 million of us would volunteer to go sit by that border.
But even setting aside the volunteer, which may be a way to go, I'm not sure I agreed with all of your approaches, but at least you have some, and that bears notice and respect. The question I would ask is, even if we beefed up the border patrols, whether by employing them or elsewise, can you really cover the whole southwestern border?
It'd be very difficult, but here's what you do. You also incentivize people to come through legally. Make the citizenship standards easier to obtain.
Okay, that's the last word on that. Are you surprised to hear that only 40% of the southern border is under operational control? If you are, go to newsmaxtv.com/comments. Let us know what you have to say about it. And coming up next, we're going to read some of your viewer comments, so don't go anywhere.
And welcome back to Daily Wrap. Well, let's read some of your viewer comments. First up, we have some comments on Kim Davis and the religious freedom debate. Nicholas says, quote, "It seems to me that the religious right is going to hurt the GOP brand when it comes to the general election. The political reality is moderates and independents decide general elections, and that demographic is very much pro-gay rights, not to mention the largest generation in this country is hitting their 30s, I don't know about that, and beginning to become more politically active and are pro-gay marriage." Unger.
3 cheers, by the way, for that commenter. Everything you said in there is factually accurate. You know what you're talking about. Lenny says, "There would be no question in my mind that Clerk Davis must obey the law, but since she agreed to serve before the Supreme Court took it upon themselves to pass the gay marriage law, she should have her name taken off the licenses. She is an elected official, so it's not the same as an employee who can look for another job." You may be right about that. It's a very you raised the most confusing question. Does Title 10 of the Civil Rights Act apply the same to an elected official as it does to an employee in a private business? I don't know the answer.
On the Nicholas comment, I agree with some of the things he said as well. And it was very pragmatic, it was lucid. However, about the biggest generation being in their 30s, isn't the baby boomer generation bigger than any other?
I don't know if it's still the biggest, but he is right. That generation is certainly a large one. I mean,
and going to bankrupt America.
And even if he got it technically wrong on that,
right,
he understands the political realities.
They are growing. I just wonder if they're politically active, Amy.
Good question. They were for President Obama in 2008 and again in 2012, but not for Democrats as a brand. But getting back to the Kim Davis issue and the viewer's comment, polling data also shows that most Americans are not behind her. Only 26% of Americans support her position. That Americans have a pretty practical view of this, which is do your job or resign.
And by the way, that shouldn't be the measuring stick. Even if Americans supported her or didn't support her, it should matter what the law says.
As a political matter, Americans are on the side of just pragmatism.
I'm not a big gay marriage guy, but I think absolutely. Look, you were elected to do this job. If you don't want to do the job, fine, don't do the job. But you can't sit there in office and not do the job.
Right. Okay. And she was denying marriage licenses to everybody.
Yeah.
My God, even 74% agrees with me. Oh my Lord.
Not a big gay marriage guy. Actually, not a gay marriage guy at all.
But you're right though, because that wasn't the issue in this.
Exactly.
Whether you're for it or against.
She was elected to do a job, do the job, or leave.
Okay. Donald Trump said the same thing, by the way, so not surprising that Carl is right in line.
Echoes.
Gail says, "What's up with the liberal Rick Unger?" Question mark and exclamation point regarding the same-sex marriage law that the Supreme Court made. He said, "You seem to think we will have to abide by it since it is the law of the land. Well, so is the Dred Scott decision. Do you think we need to go back to that law, considering it was also the law of the land decided by the Supreme Court?" Unger.
Very easy. First of all, I totally relate to what's up with Rick Unger. I get that a lot, so that's cool. but you answered your own question. When the Dred Scott decision came down from the Supreme Court, it was indeed the law of the land, whether I would have liked it or not. You know how that changed? The 14th Amendment changed that law. So if you don't like the law that the Supreme Court came down with on gay marriage, that's why we have constitutional amendments. It's that simple. There's a lot of things the Supreme Court does that I don't like. It doesn't matter that I don't like it. It's still the law.
It's like schoolyard rock around here, you know, the way you just explained that was very educational. All right, we have a comment on the Iran deal from Scott, who says, "What the heck is wrong with the Democrats?" Question mark. Simply the fact that people in the Mideast are fleeing for their lives should be obvious enough evidence that the Iran deal, not good.
You guys want to handle this?
What's wrong with Democrats? Well, I think you are their spokesperson
well, I mean,
here.
That's an open-ended question because there's so many answers.
Well, look, you may not, just quickly, you may not like the Iran deal, but that's not the reason I have to tell you that people are fleeing the Middle East. It has a lot more to do with the civil war in Syria and some other, Etruria.
I think what they're saying is that it will get a lot worse if Iran and the money they have is sponsoring the Hezbollah.
That's just not why they're
the reason people are fleeing the Middle East, and this is pretty controversial, Islam. Even the Muslims, the moderate Muslims, are leaving because of Islam. Islam is being redefined as an extremist base as a whole, and the moderate Muslims who want to coexist, they're fleeing. So Islam is the problem.
I agree with that. Yeah. The UN Refugee Agency has looked at the statistics of who the migrants are. 50% from Syria, 72% males. I think there's a lot of economic migration going on.
Interesting. Rick, take the last one.
Okay. And of course, we have some comments on Donald Trump. Here is one from Steve who says Trump is reaching across party lines. His campaign is changing the rules that have been stacked against American people, marginalizing our vote. Corrupt media and politicians must change for America to be great again. I hear you.
Amy, we only got about 10 seconds, but
Sure.
Explain that story you told earlier during the commercial about somebody who voted for Obama twice and now likes Trump. Who was
that
somebody?
would be my brother.
Oh, your brother, really?
Who was, two-time Obama voter, loves Trump.
There you go. There's your proof. Okay, well, remember, if you want to weigh in on any of these issues we talk about here on the show, be sure to go to newsmax.com/comments and let us know what you think. And be sure to get your copy of Ben Carson's book, One Nation. It's absolutely free. All you have to do is cover the $4.95 for shipping. Call 1-800-655-7567. That's 1-800-655-7567. Or visit newsmax.com/Ben right now. Okay, up next, it's Happy Times, time for Yay or Nay. This is the Daily Wrap. And welcome back to Daily Wrap. It's time for Yay or Nay. First up is Speaker of the House John Boehner's time as Majority Leader coming to an end, according to Representative Mark Meadows. How the Speaker performs over the next few months will be crucial for him, specifically on the big issues like budget reform, Planned Parenthood, and the Iran deal. Meadows actually introduced a measure earlier this year to try and oust Speaker Boehner. Do you think Mr. Meadows will be successful in his efforts to get rid of Boehner, and will he ever be ousted? Because we hear about this every couple of months, and it never happens.
You took the words out of my mouth. We keep hearing this, but it somehow never happens, so I don't know. I have to believe, though, at this point, it would be a great relief to John Boehner to be out of the job.
I agree. It seems, I'm sure he says every day, like, no one appreciates what I do.
Well, he never was Majority Leader, so we don't need to worry about that as Speaker of the House. Again, I don't know the inside baseball on this. I'm not sure in an election year it would be a good idea to have a big Republican civil war.
Interesting. Carl.
I met with Boehner once. He said, I need this job like I need a hole in the head. So please leave.
Really?
Did he also cry?
No, he was drunk.
Oh, no.
It was on an airplane. It was on an airplane.
Probably was.
He was overserved at the time, really.
Sat next to him on an airplane, but he was flying coach. He said to me, if the American people are flying coach, I'm flying coach. But he didn't want the job.
Tell me he had the middle seat.
No, he had the aisle.
So you had the middle seat.
I had the window.
Oh, the window. That's not horrible.
I was annoyed.
Yeah. Because some people, when they're relaxed, they don't move, and you can't get to the bathroom.
See, I love window because you can lean against it, take a little nap.
Yeah, you make a good point. Anyway, we're going off of what's called a tangent. All right. Following his appearance at yesterday's rally against the Iran deal, presidential hopeful, his name is Ted Cruz, is now making waves with his new posters protesting the deal. Yep, it appears the senator's head has been superimposed on another man's body. The poster says things like Iran's worst nightmare or Straight Outta Congress, which is a riff off of Straight Outta Compton movie posters. And if you want to go to Mr. Cruz's website and donate $35 or more to the cause, you can get your own limited edition Iran's Worst Nightmare posters. Is this the worst campaign idea ever? And we've seen a lot. Rick Unger.
No, I've actually seen worse, and I have to tell you, it was Carly Fiorina's campaign commercial in California running for Senate against Tom Campbell. And that was the one with the sheep, with the eyes that lit up. That was the worst ever.
Interesting. Amy.
So does this mean that the Ted Cruz campaign has been behind all of these posters all along?
Probably, yes.
I guess so, because you remember they started popping up in Los Angeles, and it was sort of like a Banksy moment. Who's doing all of this? So maybe it was very clever on his part.
Ted Cruz, Tom Cruise, really no difference when it comes to the whole movie poster.
The cruise missile.
Nice.
Yeah.
One of the biggest struggles presidential hopeful Jeb Bush has had to deal with during his campaign is separating himself from his family, specifically his brother. He has repeatedly said he is his own man and that he would do things differently than his brother did. But the Florida governor just released his plan to cut taxes, and it's just like his brother's plan in 2001. Some are saying it's even more extreme, even eliminating the estate tax entirely. Can Jeb Bush continue to say he's his own man if he's borrowing from his brother's playbook? Carl Higbee, I'll go to you on this one.
Look, I think the Jeb legacy is detrimental to him, and that's probably why he's at like 6% right now. I mean, he is completely tanking, and I know a lot of his major donors that are furious with him and saying, go on the attack Trump. You're failing anyway. The worst that can happen is you go down even more. You're not going to be the nominee. So I think Jeb just needs to pull his spine up.
Can you ever escape from the brand name that is Bush 41 one term?
Right.
43 leaves at 32% approval. I mean, I thought that this was a non-starter from the very beginning.
Right. There's obviously the legacy issue, but I'm not sure that Jeb Bush is drawing from George Bush's playbook. I think they're both drawing from the conservative playbook.
I agree with that. He's not obligated to avoid an opinion or an issue just because his brother had the same one.
Right, absolutely. Well, it continues to drop in the polls, but we'll see if he can somehow rebound. I think he's in the same situation as Hillary Clinton, where you know the brand, or at least you know the name, and it's hard to get it back. Anyway, finally, the 50th NFL season kicks off on NBC with the defending Super Bowl champion New England Patriots hosting the Pittsburgh Steelers after a summer of court cases, speculation, investigating regarding last year's Deflategate with Patriot quarterback Tom Brady. It should come as no surprise that an estimated 27 million people will be tuning in tonight. That's 3 million more, to put this in context, than last month's Fox debate. So with the viewership and the high numbers, will you be part of that,
Yes.
Carl? Quickly.
No.
Maybe. Wow.
Absolutely.
2 out of 3 ain't bad. Okay, I will as well. Patriots win by 10. Anyway, that's all for tonight. I'm Joe Conch on behalf of Rick Unger and the rest of the panel. Thank you for joining us tonight. The Steve Malzberg Show. That's next.